The xenobiology lecture hall fell silent as Professor Zethkari's 6 arms gestured toward the massive containment unit at the center of the amphitheater. Inside, barely visible through the reinforced quantum glass, something moved with predatory grace through the artificial swamp environment. Students, the Altarian professor's voice resonated through his throat sacs. Today we study one of the galaxy's most feared apex predators, the Vorthak death serpent of Kepler 442b. A collective shudder rippled through the diverse assembly of alien students. The serpent was legendary even among the hardiest spacefaring species. Measuring 30 meters in length, its scales shimmered with an iridescent black-green that seemed to absorb light itself. Twin heads weaved hypnotically at the end of its elongated neck, each sporting fangs capable of piercing battle armor. Note the creature's remarkable adaptations, Professor Zethkari continued, his 4 eyes tracking the beast's movements. Its neurotoxic venom can paralyze a Centaurian war beast in seconds. The acidic enzyme coating its fangs dissolves most known metals. Even its breath contains airborne toxins that can incapacitate targets at a range of 50 meters. A nervous chittering arose from the insectoid Zerhi students in the front row. Behind them, the crystalline beings of Rigel Prime hummed anxiously, their light forms flickering with distress. Even the notoriously brave Korthak warriors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Vorthak, the professor explained, manipulating a holographic display, has never been successfully contained by any civilization. 3 separate research stations have been completely evacuated after containment breaches. The creature's intelligence is estimated to be— Excuse me, Professor. Every head in the amphitheater turned toward the back corner where the single human student sat. Marcus Chen raised his hand with casual confidence, seemingly unperturbed by the monstrous creature just meters away. Professor Zethkari's eye stalks swiveled in the human's direction. Yes, Mr. Chen? I was wondering, can you eat it? The silence that followed was so complete that the only sound was the gentle bubbling of the containment unit's life support systems. Several students' jaws hung open in expressions that transcended species barriers. Excuse me? Professor Zethkari stammered. Marcus leaned forward slightly, his expression earnest. Well, it's got a lot of meat on it, right? And you mentioned it's from a swamp environment. That usually means the flesh is pretty tender. I'm curious about the toxin levels, though. Are they concentrated in specific organs or distributed throughout the muscle tissue? A vegan exchange student made a sound somewhere between a wheeze and a scream. The Altarian professor's skin color shifted through several shades of bewilderment. Mr. Chen, the professor said slowly, this creature has wiped out entire military squadrons. Its very presence has caused the evacuation of 3 separate star systems. And you're asking about culinary applications? Look, Marcus said, standing up and walking down toward the containment unit with an easy stride that sent other students scrambling away from his path. I get that it's dangerous, but my species has been eating dangerous things for millennia. We've got pufferfish that can kill you with one wrong cut, but we turned it into a delicacy. Blue-ringed octopi, cone snails, deathcap mushrooms. If it exists, some human has probably wondered if it tastes good with the right seasoning. The Vorthak death serpent had noticed the approaching human and pressed both its heads against the quantum glass, forked tongues flicking out to taste the air. Its massive coils tensed as if preparing to strike. Marcus stopped just inches from the containment field, studying the creature with the same intensity a chef might examine a prize lobster. The scales would have to come off, obviously, and I'm thinking you'd want to bleed it out properly to reduce the toxin concentration. Maybe a nice marinade to break down some of those enzymes. Human, Professor Zethkari's voice cracked. Please step away from the containment unit. But Marcus was already circling the enclosure, his eyes tracking the serpent's movements with analytical interest. You know, the locomotion suggests really well-developed musculature. Probably firm but not tough if you prepared it right. And look at that marbling pattern in the scales. That's usually a good indicator of fat distribution. The Vorthak death serpent, apex predator of a world that had never known mercy, found itself in the entirely novel position of being regarded not as a source of terror, but as a potential Tuesday night dinner. Other students watched in horrified fascination as the human continued his culinary assessment. A few had begun recording the encounter, already composing messages to their homeworlds about the insane human who looked at the galaxy's most feared predator and saw a meal. The real question, Marcus mused, tapping his finger against his chin, is cooking method. Something this size, you'd probably want to break it down into sections. Maybe smoke some of the larger cuts, grill the tenderloin sections. Oh, and I bet the organs have concentrated flavors. Probably make an excellent stock base. Professor Zethkari had gone through his entire spectrum of skin colors twice. Mr. Chen, in all my years of xenobiology, I have never encountered a species that responds to apex predators by planning a menu. Marcus finally turned away from the containment unit, looking genuinely surprised by the professor's distress. Really? That's weird. I mean, back on Earth, the more dangerous something was, the more of a delicacy it usually became. Shark fin soup, rattlesnake meat, fugu. We've got a saying, everything's edible if you cook it right. The serpent, meanwhile, had begun what could only be described as agitated pacing, as if it somehow sensed that its entire existence had just been reduced to a culinary challenge. Besides, Marcus added with a grin that sent chills down several spines, my grandmother always said the best way to deal with something that scares you is to figure out how to cook it. Makes everything seem a lot less threatening when you're wondering whether it goes better with rice or noodles. As the class period ended and students filed out in various states of shock and awe, Professor Zethkari made a mental note to add a new warning to the course syllabus. Humans may regard dangerous xenofauna as potential food sources. This is normal human behavior. Do not attempt to discourage this response, as it appears to be fundamental to their psychology. In its containment unit, the Vorthak death serpent pressed itself against the far wall, instinctively recognizing that it had just encountered something far more terrifying than itself. A species that looked at the food chain and saw only ingredients.